Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
I have to ask these questions. I ask all my guests, from billionaires to Nobel Prize winners to the most popular scientists for very good reason on planet Earth, and that's you, Neil, who's influenced me. I do want to thank you sincerely. You have been a great influence on me, not just because you kept my kids busy for 12 hours at a time when they watch Cosmos, which is, every parent's dream to have a free babysitter in the form of Neil deGrasse Tyson. The first question I ask actually is not too dissimilar to what Alfred Nobel did. So he gave the prize to those who stimulated the best discovery in all of physics or chemistry, et cetera. But he said it had to be for the benefit of mankind. And in that way, he constructed his will in what we in Judaism call a zava'ah, or an ethical will. I want to ask you, what bit of wisdom, not your monetary, kind of wealth, that's for you to decide and whatever, but what gifts do you want to bestow upon your ideological heirs, of which I count myself as one?
Oh, well, what you're asking for, I think, is what bits of wisdom have I gleaned in my life that could be shared with others that could benefit them? And I think that's what you just said. And I would say that any day that goes by where I don't learn something is a wasted day. As I get older and I get a little more frail, and you get achy and you don't pop up in the morning, what's your return on that investment? Well, it better be because you keep learning. Okay. If your body starts becoming something else, your brain doesn't have to, as long as you stay brain healthy, right? So learn something new so that the accrued years mean something. So I try to every day come to some new point of knowledge, enlightenment, wisdom. And so that's my first advice. Second advice is, you want on your deathbed, I want on my deathbed to be assured that the world is slightly better off for you having lived in it. And that's it. That's what guides me. I don't need to be remembered. I don't care. No, it just doesn't matter. What matters is I have helped others lead scientifically enlightened lives. And I don't know anyone who would give that back once they achieve that.
That's wonderful. Okay, the next one takes us farther into the future, and it's related to Sir Arthur C. Clarke. So I am the co-director of the Arthur C. Clarke Center for Human Imagination at UC San Diego. And Arthur C. Clarke, in 2001, A Space Odyssey, had these monoliths that were floating around. Nobody knew what they were, but they essentially are some sort of interstellar, intertemporal time capsule. And I want to know, if you had access to a billion-year time capsule, and this is a question I asked Ann Druyan, and she said I already did this on the Voyager Golden Disc, but if you had a billion-year guarantee that your time capsule is going to be found by some civilization, what would you put on it or in it? What would it be that maybe encapsulates everything that humanity has to kind of pat itself on the collective back for?
I think our way that we now record history and keep records of what we do and what we say makes time capsules obsolete. There's nothing more boring than opening up a time capsule. In fact, most time capsules, their locations are forgotten. Go look this up. It's fascinating. I was in Flushing Park, where the Unisphere is, where the World's Fair was. There was a time capsule buried there back at the time with great celebration. People were proud of all the new technologies they were able to put in this time capsule, and it's long forgotten. I'm sitting on a park bench, and I look over my shoulder, and there's this stake in the ground, and it says time capsule. It's like overgrown. There's dog poop near it. Do you really care what they put in something long ago, given how we're now living? Do you really want to know how they dealt with tuberculosis? Do you really want to know how good the slave owners were? Are these things that are you really curious about? I hope there is nothing going on today that would have any relevance to anybody a billion years from now.
Would you rather have one reader 100 years from now or 100 readers tomorrow? Basically, would you trade longevity of ideas for popular sales?
Oh, I see what you're saying. I think we should live in the moment. So get the 100 readers now, and let someone else 100 years from now get 100 readers for what they did in 100 years. Again, I don't care if what I do lasts. It doesn't matter to me. Well, we live in the moment. You should celebrate the moment because we are prisoners of the present, forever transitioning from our inaccessible past to our unknowable future.
Wow. If Judaism allowed tattoos, I'm going to put that on my body somewhere, Neil. Okay, last question, Neil, for you is also Arthur C. Clarke's second law, which says his first law is any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Second law, any expert is refuted by an equal and opposite expert. His third law is the only way of discovering the limits of the possible is to venture a little way past them into the impossible. And that's the origin of the name of this podcast. Neil, what piece of advice would you tell 20-year-old Neil Tyson? What would you tell him to give him the courage to go into the impossible as you have?
No, I don't think about speaking to my younger self, because everything I learned as a younger self was through either hard knocks or one-on-one personal experience, and that's what shapes who you are. If you could just go back and give advice to everybody, well, where did that advice come from that you gleaned? It's because you lived through it. That's how it even became advice in the first place. Now you're going to go back and now you're going to prevent your younger self from living through it. Does that still count as life experience? I don't think so. And in fact, if you go back and tell yourself, don't go through that door because you'll stub your toe, and then you never go through the door, and then you don't stub your toe, you will not have had the advice to go back and tell yourself to not go through the door, because you would have not lived through the trauma to even make it advice in the first place. So this thing, let me go back and now, by the way, you don't want to make the same mistake twice. So maybe the advice is, whatever you do that was bad, don't do it twice. Okay? That's good advice for anything. But otherwise, all else is life experience. It's like the immigrant who comes with $20 in their pocket, and then they work hard and they try to get bread on their plate, and then they're starving half the time, and then they finally do, and then they go up and they own a business, and then they buy the business, and a series of business, and then they get married, and then they have kids, and then they say, I want to make sure my kids do not struggle the way I did. So the kids grow up, and then they're 20, and then they're deadbeats, and then you say, where did I go wrong? I gave my kids everything I didn't have. That's where you went wrong. You gave your kids everything you didn't have. So I'm not into this, let's get future advice to a younger person. I don't think that works. I think it's an overrated dimension of what it is to be alive.
I actually quantified that once. I typed into Google Trends. I said, what are the most common words preceding the sentence that says it was the best thing that ever happened to me? And it's always I failed, or I got fired, or something that seemed awful in the moment and it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me. Well, Neil, one of the best things that's ever happened to me is having this conversation. It's been such a pleasure to me. I'm a Bronx boy from my second generation Bronx boy. I want to send you love from the West Coast, and I hope we meet in person someday.
Excellent. We're in the Bronx. Did you hang out?
My mom and father from the Mashalou Parkway, and my wife's parents are also from Gun Hill Road, that kind of area.
Okay, cool. Bronx in the house. Okay. Thanks for having me.
Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.